Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here for this roundtable dedicated to crypto VC versus Bitcoin VC, gambling versus building. To talk about this topic, I have four men with me. Matthieu Hesloin, you're a CDO of Bpifrance, the French public investment bank. Cyril Bertrand, your managing partner at XAnge, which is an early stage VC fund. Bartosz Jakubowski, your partner at Alven, also an early stage VC fund. And finally, Vincent Sebag, your vice president of Kapten Innovation, a multi-stage venture firm. So we're going to start with just a number. I like to start with numbers because in the first semester of 2022, crypto VC funding reached it was like $17.5 billion in the world. So there's a good chance we're going to break the record from last year that was $26.9 billion. Why is the crypto is not suffering from, the tech bubble? What you're thinking?
Well, so first of all, thank you, Charlie, for moderating this, and thank you all for being here. So first of all, I don't know if crypto is really not suffering from the downturn. The current crypto total market cap is around 1 trillion. It was 3.5 just 7 months ago. So I would say there is a downturn. Maybe one of the things that mitigates this downturn is actually two things. First is the time horizon of most of our investments. So we're investing, we'll get back to that, but our average holding period is like 7-8 years. So between the time we invest and the time we know we will have to exit, and so the point in the cycle that we will be in 8 years, there's a big difference. And so that's why I think in crypto it's relatively preserved compared to other markets, because we know it will take time to get back to the right point in the cycle. And the second thing is maybe there's a bit of overhype in crypto, and VCs have a lot of dry powder in general now, and some of them know what they're doing in crypto, some of them don't, and so just in early stage there's a lot of hype, a lot of excitement, a lot of experiments. Some of these will yield results, some will not, and so I think these are the two main reasons why the downturn is not as strong in crypto as it is in other sectors.
Yes.
Maybe something to add to this. Crypto currently is in the hands of 1% of the world population, around about, so 1%. And we VC, because it's a roundtable of VC, right? We have the feeling that it's probably now in the next 1 or 2 years that the 1% is going to go to the 99%. So the crypto are going to stop being used only by a small club of fans of crypto, which we all are in this room, and at some point it is going to become something for the mass market, and that's probably one of the things that we all invest in those days.
Okay, so that's just the beginning. He's gonna, Vincent.
Yeah, maybe to add something here, what we see is when we're talking about Bitcoin is very cyclical every 4 years. And so we have some bear markets and some bull markets. And so today we could think that we're in a bear market. It's actually during the bear markets that the ecosystem is really building up. And so it's also the moment when VCs are really interested to invest in companies to help them grow at the moment where they have maybe less capital from the global markets. And so maybe in the next 1-2 years, there will continue to be a lot of funding. And there's a lot of VC funds that are also investing more and more and entering the space. So it will continue to grow very significantly, to add on what has been said.
And what we see globally is that the appetite for risk has decreased this year. And obviously, as crypto are back on technological platform, well, there could be a side of the global trend. But as mentioned, it's a very, very interesting time for investing for us.
So you all invested in crypto companies, crypto projects. Can you tell us more about maybe your investment thesis? Do you just invest in infrastructures, or to the contrary, just applications. Maybe Cyril, can you tell us maybe more about what you did at XAnge?
So we are just about raising a new fund dedicated to crypto. So what we do today is done with the usual digital funds. We don't yet have the pure crypto fund. So we divide the world, as my colleagues, because we know each other quite well. So we see infrastructure, which is one of the 4 pillars. We see DeFi, which is the second. It comes a bit in the order of chronology in the crypto space. After DeFi, we see what we call Web3, where you see the gaming and so on. And perhaps a bit in the future, we will see the governance aspect, the communities management and so on. So those are the 4 main items, and I'm sure my colleagues will also cover some of them. So if I say them again, in the order of appearance, infrastructure, DeFi, Web3, and governance would be the split of investments.
Bartosz?
Yeah, so actually very similar in the way that we see the world of potential investments that we do. And I think also what's important is to acknowledge that we're in the adoption phase of all these technologies. And so those different sectors will not happen to get to maturity at the same time. So that's why we first focus on infrastructure. How do you actually help new players enter into the crypto space? So we've done a lot of investments in the data space with Kaiko, accounting and reporting space with crypto, some investment like this, helping traditional institutions or individual people deal with crypto assets. And then progressively we're shifting towards more closer to the application layer, so actual DeFi applications, actual games based on blockchain technologies and stuff like this. But we think that it's going to take more time, so now we focus on infrastructure first and then on the application layer.
Vincent, do you only invest in Europe or also in Asia?
So we're Cathay, we're a global fund, and we've launched a fund in partnership with Ledger. We've been investor in Ledger since 2017 with Cyril, who's been an early bettor in the company. Because of this, we will invest all around the world with that fund. And to answer also the question that was previously asked, today there's a big issue in terms of adoption for the mass market. So people who are looking into Bitcoin, looking into Ethereum, it's easy maybe for them to understand the technology. But if you take your grandma, or even a non-techie person, it's a lot more difficult. And so what we are looking to do is bring the infrastructure, the scalability, but more than this, also the security. That's also coming a little bit from Ledger 2, of course, so that it becomes something that anyone can use without having to rethink how do technically I go from one chain to another? How do I manage the security? Am I at risk of a scam or of a hack? And so we're also investing worldwide from infrastructure also to gaming, for instance, so that the mass market can enter this space.
And Bpifrance investing directly into startups, but also in funds, and maybe in the ones the Cathay and Ledger, right?
Absolutely. So we have both sides of the activity. We are a direct investor, and we invested mostly in infrastructure projects. So we invested, for instance, on the Lightning scalability through XAnge. Okay, we financed Ledger from the beginning in 2014, and now we are financing projects like in DLC, discrete logic contract. So we believe that this is a way to build a future of Bitcoin and contribute to more massive adoption. And on the other side, we are quite bullish on investing on our fund-of-fund activity. So we're happy to invest in the Cathay Ledger fund dedicated to crypto. We invested in the Y-Star, also in the US, and we discussed with a lot of crypto funds around the world through the fund-of-fund activity.
And you all tech fund, you're very general, you know. So how do you invest in, you know, infrastructures? I mean, do you have specialists in the fund? How did you do that? Because that's very, very difficult. Maybe Bartosz, you...
Sure. So, you know, it's still a relatively nascent industry. And so being like a crypto native just means that you've been in the space for like 6-7 years. So it's actually not super long. And so, no, we don't have, I mean, we consider ourselves maybe not as experts, but as investors, and so we bet mostly on builders, actually, people who are building these companies, and so we trust them to be able to, you know, master the tech, and then be able to ship a product, and then be able to distribute a product, and be able to have a sustainable business model. So this is actually most of what we focus on. So assessing the teams of founders, more than, you know, spending hours and hours and hours reading white papers. Obviously, we all used to do that in the beginning when there was one white paper every 6 months that was issued. Now that there are, you know, 100 a day, it's obviously more difficult to do.
There are about 800 crypto funds in the world, and it's roughly speaking 50% liquid, you know, hedging strategies, and 50% builders, if you want, or infrastructure. Clearly, we all belong to the second part, so we all invest in builders. So back to the title of the conference, if we invest in gambling, it's only from an infrastructure standpoint. So you know, we are not trading liquid tokens. We don't build all the tools that are necessary to do that. And there are a lot of VCs doing that very well, but that's not what we do today. So when we invest in crypto, we do it exactly the same way we would invest in a startup. We are there for 7 to 8 years on average. We start at seed stage. We invested, for instance, in Ledger in 2014. It was a 3-man company, and that's what we tend to do again those days when we invest in Dogami in the gaming space, or in Reflect in the accountability space. So that's the sort of investment we do. I don't think it's enormously different from investing in the digital space, what we do.
Vincent or Matthieu?
I totally agree. We invest and we assess the technology and the team of founders and the credibility of this team, especially the experience on the technology stack. So not much difference, and probably what but we start this year for the first time. We will buy some tokens, so it's news. We are on the verge of doing it on the second part of this year, and just to be able to have some tokens on our balance sheet. So it's quite interesting in terms of difference compared to our traditional equity part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll talk about this a bit later. But is it very different? Maybe what's the difference when you invest, you know, as a regular VC versus, you know, crypto fund? Is there many differences between the two or not?
Actually, there are some VCs that are only doing crypto, only Web3, some of them only Bitcoin. And all of us here are more coming from the more traditional world, or the pre-crypto world, if we can call it like this. And what's interesting is that the different types of VCs bring different types of value add to the companies. Purely crypto VC will maybe have nodes, so we'll have a portfolio where there might be more synergies between themselves because all of them will be Web3. They might help on, for instance, the fluctuation of a given token. So that's one side of the coin. The traditional VCs will more help on how you build a business, how you grow a business, how you recruit, how you go to new geographies, how you do business development. And so it's really interesting that from one company to another, some entrepreneurs will want, in some cases, more than one and more than another. And so on our side, the value that we're trying to bring is on the Cathay side, we bring the traditional, let's say, VC, so how you scale a company, and Ledger brings the knowledge of the space, so the real expertise about Web3. So we're trying to bring the two, which are useful for companies.
Now, we do have specific challenges, and one of them is perhaps well known to the room, which is the custodian aspect for a crypto VC to hold the tokens is still nascent, to put it nicely. So we all have to face that. Some of them have existing solutions in place. That's the case of Cathay. We have to be slightly creative to be able to operate those days in Europe. So that's one of the examples where there are some subtle differences in the way we operate.
And how are you going to do it with your new fund?
So the solutions we are putting in place as we speak would rely on the French bank, and that would be nice because that would be regulated by the French AMF. It's going, one step at a time. So I'm going to be cautious about when we will have the solution in place.
Okay.
I see also two different specific points on the investment on crypto companies for us. First, that you need to have a lot of expertise on the code, because a lot of platforms, it's really specific technology, so it's not easy to make the due diligence on the technology side. So you need to have some experts, some referrals on the market, really to go into the code to assess the technology. So it's quite specific. And on the other side, what we had and what is quite changing today in those times, as we were in a bull market, we had no time to make our classical due diligence. So we were pushed into our limits to make a very quick decision on some investment, and that was not really easy and on our traditional way of investing. So we most of the time we try to have a consensus with obviously because we are co-investing with some other funds. So, but this question of time was quite critical to make a good assessment, and as we are entering in a more complex market, I think it's a good thing of the beer market.
Yeah, you have more time now. Yeah.
Maybe to wrap up on this question, so I think it depends more on the type of organization in which we're investing. So some of them are very centralized and actually operating as regular companies. I'm thinking of Ledger, Sorare. These are all centralized companies that are working on things related to crypto and to decentralization, but themselves they're not like decentralized entities. And then you have protocols which are way more decentralized. The instrument to invest in them is not equity but token, and so this is actually the main difference that then has a lot of implications on the instrument to invest in it, how you store it and how you do the custody of it, the liquidity also of the potential investment, and different things like this. But what I would like to highlight is that actually there's a lot more similarities than differences between like crypto companies and regular tech companies, because launching a crypto company is, first of all, launching a company, and so you have to assemble the right team. There has to be, a strong drive in the founding team to really make something significant, meaningful over a long period of time. You have to build the product, you have to distribute the product, you have to build the team, to hire the right people. And all of these are things that are way, way, way more similar to a traditional tech company than different from.
But what can you bring that, I don't know, crypto VCs can't?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So for instance, on one of the things that we focus on at Alven is actually helping the founding team build out the rest of the team, so hiring. And one of the things that we've created is an initiative called Operation 3, which is sort of a marketplace between, we've selected for the first batch 14 tech crypto companies, ranging from Ledger actually to like Morpho and Angle. And then on the other side, we are acquiring experienced Web2 operators, so people with experience in, I don't know, software development, product management, marketing, business, partnerships, stuff like this, and upskilling these people into crypto so that they become Web3 fluent over a 6-week program. And then we match those talents with the potential companies just to help them hire actually people who are both experienced and Web3 fluent.
And I guess it's very hard to find, you know, talent in the crypto space. A lot more than in the tech space.
What's actually difficult is to find the combination of people who are both experienced and Web3 fluent, and so that's what we try to focus on, because you have a lot of, you know, straight out of school, super excited people about crypto, but who, you know, didn't work at any company before and didn't hire people, manage people, and get experience. So what's hard is to find both. Also because we've been in a very bull market in traditional tech as well, and so there was a big opportunity cost for these people to, you know, start from scratch in crypto while they were already super desired as talent in traditional tech.
Some of you already mentioned it, the fact that you invest rather in equity or tokens. Maybe I'm going to start with you, Vincent, because Kapten just launched a 100 million fund, and you said you can invest in equity and in tokens. Can you tell us more about it, how you do that?
Sure. So the idea, when we decided to launch a fund in the space, having the ability in investing in tokens was really paramount. We couldn't see only investment in equity. We had to do both if we really believed in the space. And one of the difficulties in France is we are all working in regulated entities, because it's not our own money that we're investing, but we're investing on behalf of others. And so to do this, we need to be regulated. And so that means a list of players within the French ecosystem that need to align. So we need for the AMF to help us, and for us to have the regulation from the AMF to invest. We also need to have the banks, the custodians, be willing to have tokens on their balance sheet so that we can have the fund. We need to have insurers that will reinsure the fund, and so willing to have a risk of tokens. And so one of the really exciting things is that today, with everything that has been moving forward, everyone within France and the government and within those entities are really making the moves. So for instance, the French Treasury, they've recruited someone who is now focusing nearly full-time only on crypto. On those aspects, all of the banks are now stepping up to have offers that enable to hold tokens. So all of those have been really changing in the last 12 months, which is exciting because it will enable all the market to really thrive in France. And we also have the regulation with the PSAN that has been super paramount to get there.
Have you already invested in a few startups and in tokens yet, or not, with the new fund?
So they're not announced, but yes.
Okay, Bartosz, can you tell us? Alven also invested in tokens, or maybe the partnerships. Can you tell us?
Yeah, so actually, we are all operating with exactly the same set of constraints, and so we're all more or less at the same stage of getting to the desired goal, which is to be able to invest our clients' money into equity or tokens with no distinction. But we have to start somewhere, right? And obviously our time frame is a lot shorter than the regulator time frame, and that's some of the service providers' time frame. So what we did at Alven is to set up a separate entity that has no ties with our management company that invests private money, so not our customers' money, into tokens to be able to first experiment, learn how to actually do it with money at scale, more than a private MetaMask address, and then to be able to also build a track record when the setup is ready for us to do things at scale. And so this is how we invested in Morpho Labs and Angle Labs and Immortal Game, which is a chess play-to-earn game, in Sysmo, which is a decentralized identity protocol, and a bunch of others.
And Cyril?
Yeah, that was the only solution when we started a few years ago. Founders like you in the room came to us and said, "Okay, you're going to invest both in my equity and in my token, right?" And we said, "Yes, of course." Except that we were not able to do the token investments at the same level. So we did the equity investment from the fund, and then we invested in the token with the partner's money. So we made a token investment with the money of the partner, not of the fund, and that prevents us from having to comply with all the rules and regulations of the fund. That brought us up to today, and now we have to go to the next stage, which is, okay, now we are going to do token investments with the funds, just in case it's not clear, and that's where we are today. I think something important you said, what can we do for the crypto investors, is simply to prepare the next stage of funding, right? In Europe now we operate in a mature supply chain where the seed funds made their job, and then the Series A guys take over, and so on and so on. And every stage of the chain has to play, of course, the role of building the company, but also to prepare the next fundraising. So we are seed guys. So when we come in, what we essentially have in mind is, okay, how are we going in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months? How are we going to go to the Series A guys, and those could be my neighbors, and how are we going to help the entrepreneurs look good, essentially? How are they going to present their work? What needs to be done from a governance standpoint, from a board standpoint, from a hiring standpoint? And all of that can be done, actually is done at an increasing level of professionalism, stage by stage.
And Matthieu, you, Bpifrance, recently invested in Ariane. In equity and tokens. Do you really hold those tokens, or are they maybe warrants?
For RNE, we invested in equity. In token, it will be announced in a few weeks, but it's really part of our innovation journey. Compared to my colleagues, we have two regulations. We have the VC regulation, and we have the banking regulation from the ECB. And so it's even more complex. So we created a separate legal entity to be able to buy those tokens, so they will not be into our traditional funds. And we are investigating with legal and compliance just to make it relevant for both regulators. So but I think we are at the end of the journey in a few weeks. So it's a good news, and for us it obviously will not trade those tokens. It's more like how we can handle it and how we can then probably in the future scale and be able to invest more in tokens in the future.
And Bartosz, when you buy tokens, you see that like trading or just investment or something else?
No, so as we said before, we have like a long holding horizon, which is counted in years, and usually like the high single-digit years, so 7-8 years. And we consider the token just as an equity instrument. It just so happens that where the value accrues in protocols is not the same place where the value accrues in traditional companies. So it's tokens versus equity, but we consider that in the exact same way. And I like the multi-coin founder saying is, if you don't see yourself holding this token indefinitely, then don't invest at all. And so we sort of have the same approach. Obviously, at some point we have to exit just to return the money to our own investors, but this is how we see it. That being said, even the token investments that we've done with that separate entity that I mentioned are, for the oldest, maybe 2.5 years old. So it's still quite short. So we will see how it goes. And obviously the main difference is that compared to a traditional equity where usually you have one shot at exiting, so either you exit totally or you don't exit at all. It's more complicated than this in reality, but let's simplify it. In tokens, you have like 24/7 liquidity. So in theory, you could say, just as dollar cost averaging at the entry, you could also do it at exits, for instance, and exiting your position in, I don't know, 5% over 20 months or something like this. But we're not like capital market investors, so we have the thesis over several years, and when we feel that the thesis is validated, then at some point when we have to exit, we do exit.
Vincent or Cyril, what do you see? The fact buying tokens is more just, to trade, or just to see how you can hold them.
No, we hold. Same as Bartosz, we hold. Maybe the big difference is that the holding period of tokens is shorter, currently, much shorter than the equity horizon. We typically exit tokens in 2 years. And if we don't, usually it's a big failure. So it means that we in our business, we make a lot of mistakes, right? When we lose, right? We lose everything. So a token is either, I'm pushing a bit to the, to the extreme, but a token is either a success in 2 or 3 years or not. And in terms of equity, it can be, 5 to 10 years, the usual period.
But again, maybe to be taken with a pinch of salt, since we don't have that much hindsight, right? So we will see if some tokens have been failures for 3 years and then went on to be successes. In adoption times, I'm thinking of, I don't know, all the decentralized storage protocols, for instance, that were barely used for a long period of time, and now with NFTs and creator economy and stuff are gaining more traction. So it's all to be taken with a pinch of salt.
So we're not going to talk about NFTs, but maybe a word about Bitcoin, of course, because a Bitcoin conference, but is one of you that just is a Bitcoin maximalist, or do you have some? What's a bit your mind about Bitcoin, Vincent, or smiling?
So I have to confess that I'm not a Bitcoin maxi. I'm a talent maxi, and so actually I'm seeing where talent is gathering to, and I'm seeing a lot of developer talent flocking into smart contract platforms as well as Bitcoin, and so I'm very curious to see what's happening in the Ethereum ecosystem, for instance.
I'm not a maximalist either. I do believe that Bitcoin is great as a currency, and today it's the best currency that is decentralized. Yet, for me, and what we believe is that within the whole blockchain space and the crypto world, there's a number of other use cases that have a lot of value and that we're willing to bet on. So we believe that there's value both on this and on so many other things. So not only close the world to Bitcoin.
No, sorry, no Bitcoin maximalist.
Matthieu.
And we like Bitcoin, we like the Bitcoin technology, but we can't be maximalists. And because what we serve is the future, and at the end the market will make the choice. We have a portfolio management strategy, so. Obviously, in our portfolio, we have Bitcoin. Because of history, we have Bitcoin projects and Bitcoin companies, and we still invest in this platform because we believe this is probably the best now, but we are fully open and we invest in other platforms too because the market needs to make the difference, not us.
So now we're in a bear market. The tech values are crashing. It's not a very good sign for startups. Well, I'm exaggerating a little bit, of course. So what's going to be your strategy for the next few months? Are you going to slow down your investments, or to the contrary, are you going to accelerate because it's time?
We are not going to accelerate and we are not going to decrease pace. So we are just going to, we are in a business where you don't try to second guess the market. We know that there are cycles in the space, right? Every one of us has seen that, and we typically, I think the VCs work on an assumption that the cycles are 2 to 3 years. So you have to accept, if you're investing in this business, that every 3 years it's going to be down, and every 3 years at some point you're going to have to exit. Because you have to keep in mind that in the VC business you invest and you exit, right? You not only invest. So you'd better make clear that the next opportunity of exiting is coming in 3 years, and you have to prepare. We all have to prepare for that. So we keep investing, seed, Series A. We don't decrease anything, and as Bartosz said, we shoot for a time horizon of 6 to 10 years. So what's happening today is not really a big problem for us.
Maybe one thing that's changing is actually how demanding we are with the potential companies that we look after. So just to have a bit of context, so we are seeing roughly 400 to 500 companies a month, and we invest in between 1 and 2 a month. So the selection rate is quite harsh, and in a bear market, actually both the numerator and denominator are going down. So we are more demanding, but also there are less projects because people are suddenly realizing that it's cool to have a salary and to stay at their previous employer. So yeah, I don't think anything is going to change. We'll still make 1 or 2 investments a month, but the level of potential for disruption, potential for company size, team background, and etc. will go increasing for sure.
One of the things that we've seen in the space is that it's highly cyclical, and so when we have a bull market, the companies do amazing revenues, but are usually under a lot of stress and under a lot of pressure from the markets. And so it's not a time where they're able to build and do things in the best ways. So they just need to manage the growth as best as they can. And so usually it's during the bear markets that all of those companies, at least the best companies, take this opportunity really to build and prepare for the next bull markets. And so it's really this moment when we find that there's great entrepreneurs that have this capacity that we want to invest in them, so they have money at the time where they can actually build, that it makes the most sense. And so as my colleagues just said before, so the question is finding those right entrepreneurs within those more, let's say, difficult times where there's maybe a little bit less capital, and it's the best moment to build, and then be prepared when the markets start exploding again.
Matthieu?
We believe that it's a great time, indeed, because there is less pressure on investing. We have time to investigate. We have money left to deploy. So it's a good time for us, indeed, in terms of investment. I know probably for entrepreneurs it will be more complex, but this is where you are building the best companies, I say, where you're investing in the future, and you're not just you have not only the market growth that push you, but you need to make change. You need to make strategy decision, and it's quite interesting to see which will be the best team in this environment, because it's not, it's more complex. So we will see those that will fail and those that will succeed and pass the period.
Well, thank you for this discussion. We have like a few minutes for a Q&A session. So if some of you have questions, raise your hand. Is there someone who gives the mic or?
Hello. I have a question for all of you, actually. The last 18 months, we had $60 billion invested in VC funds worldwide. The bulk of it comes from USA or Asia, and the part of Europe is negligible. Why do you think need to be done in Europe to change it?
So that's actually an excellent question, and it's a concern that we all have, I think. One of the things that is to be changed for sure is like the level of maybe regulation. As we said, we are all constrained here, and that's one of the reasons, probably not the only reasons, but one of the reasons why there is no, big crypto-focused fund based in France that has been up and running for like the past 5 years. So that's one for sure. And then the other one is also, to be honest, it's also coming from entrepreneurs, right? You have a lot of big US brands, Andreessen Horowitz is probably the most well-known, but you have, Paradigm, Pantera, and others. And all of most of the French crypto entrepreneurs are dreaming of these investors for good and bad reasons. And so it's also a question of like, who do you favor in terms of working with someone? And so this is why what we are seeing is a lot of collaboration. So between local funds that are bringing something else, local network, hiring network, on the ground presence, and then other global funds that are bringing more, branding and network and something like this.
Maybe just an element of optimism. I think it's starting now. What I'm seeing is that you have perhaps 5 to 10 funds raising only in France as we speak, and the same in Germany. The UK was slightly ahead of the rest anyway. So, but for continental Europe, I think you entrepreneur will have probably 5 to 10 funds in each of the big countries in the next 12 months. That would be my assumption. Maybe, Matthieu, you are the best position to have a view on that.
We definitively believe that it's coming in Europe, but you are perfectly right. There was a major shift between the US and us, but what was interesting is that even though there was this shift and mass of investment in the other part of the Atlantic, well, we see that in terms of talents and technology, well, a lot of companies in France, in the blockchain, in Bitcoin, are really well positioned, and you see that big funds, US funds, were investing in France on part of the companies, so it's quite interesting. And now we, Bpifrance, we really push our VC funds and VC French fund. We stimulate them to invest in this part of activity. This is why we invested with Kapten, and we have discussion obviously with Alven and with XAnge and all the ecosystem. And there was the big event, Capital Invest, in June in Paris, and we encourage all the ecosystem to invest in this part and not let the US just rule the world on this part of innovation. But in history, innovation on finance, well, the US and the English were quite good on this part.
We don't have any other question? No, it's okay. Well, so thank you very much again for your time and for this discussion. Thank you.